Hello. Hi. I'm so excited that you stopped by. How are you doing today? Oh, well, I am just so grateful that you made time. I am really excited to have this opportunity to share a little bit more about myself as you explore Heartful. And so, first, let me introduce myself. My name is Nguyen Hoang Yu Nguyen, or you can call me Yu Win, like I win, you win, we all win. And I wanted to share three things with you in the hopes that it might be helpful as you're figuring out if this is somewhere that might resonate with you, somewhere you might want to hang out or come back to visit. And so, the first thing that I wanted to share is that I am working with, um, have been wearing a trauma informed lens, maybe an ACEs lens, if you're familiar with adverse childhood experiences. And so, a lot of what brought me to having that lens is really my experiences growing up in my family, in my community, and with the people that I've worked with. And I think there is a lot of shame and a lot of blame around how people have adapted to their life experiences. And so I think having that trauma informed lens, having that ACE informed lens to me is really about having a humanity lens, right? Adverse childhood experiences. The study really shows the connection between toxic stress experiences that are just really hard on the system for a child growing up, and then health issues for adults, right? And so, in learning about ACEs and learning about trauma and just the effects of toxic stress, I've been able to understand my own journey. I've been able to understand my family's journey more. And the really beautiful thing that has come out from it is, really being able to cultivate compassion, right? I think a lot of times our societal expectations, put people in places and tell people how to be, how they should behave, how they should speak and think. And I don't think that takes into consideration how we are shaped by experience, by our environments, right? And so my hope is that with this lens, it's really about, how do we treat one another? How do we see one another? How do we get to know someone and be curious instead of blaming them or shaming them, right? So that's the first thing that I wanted to share with you. The second thing, and I have to preface this by letting you know that I am naturally very curious. It could be my Gemini moon, but I ask a lot of questions, and I have always asked a lot of questions. Really, the kinds to get to know people and to go a little bit deeper. But one of the questions that I came across once was, if your life were considered a book genre, what genre would your life fall under? And so for me, um, I would have to say that my life has been magical realism, right? I haven't read a lot of magical realist books. There are maybe a couple that I've come across on my journey in university. And I think the thing that really stands out for me and how I explain magical realism is that the ordinary seems magical and the magical seems ordinary, right? So, um, if something ordinary that we do, let's say eat breakfast or take a shower, right? Things that we don't always think about, things that might feel mundane, things that we might do mindlessly, right? Um, within magical realism, there might be an element that makes it fantastical, right? So maybe in the shower, um, a person might imagine the water and having a conversation with the water, and there might be dialogue, or there might be something that isn't normally happening, right? And so then with something that's magical that feels ordinary, right? Maybe something like a miracle, maybe like a spirit showing up, instead of maybe reacting to it negatively or strongly or out of shock, it just feels like it's a part of everyday life. Okay. And so for me, even though in growing up, there was a lot of, of struggle and um, a sense of dis-ease, um, growing up with parents and brothers who are refugees and immigrants. But there was also this quality that made it possible for me to believe in magic. And it definitely was influenced by some of the cultural pieces that, my parents brought in, having parents who believe in spirits, having an altar and welcoming our ancestors to join us. Um, and then also having a mother who has spiritual gifts, right? Being able to share messages with people, to be able to communicate with spirit. And so this really set me up for being able to be open, right, to whatever showed up. So whether or not I saw it, whether or not I experienced it, I felt like I could suspend judgment, and I would get really excited, right, to see like, oh, this is like a different way. This is like a different tool to help us to understand life. And so, really early on, I was really interested in astrology. And as I continue to come across different people and situations and opportunities, I was able to learn more about healing sciences through a yoga teacher training that I completed. Even though the intention was not to be a yoga instructor, I really wanted to learn about healing. Okay. And so being exposed to Ayurveda, to alternative Chinese medicine, to Qigong, to Tai Chi, to Reiki, and then meeting different healers where maybe it didn't fall under these more well-known modalities, but really being open to what they had to offer and what they have interpreted to be, a tool or framework to support others. And so I think having that openness to, the possibilities really informs who I am as a person. And I am the friend who someone will reach out to and say, this is going on. It might sound really weird. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I totally understand. That happened to me too. And then just to be able to, to connect and hold space with each other around, these different ways of understanding the world and the universe. So that's the second thing. And then the third thing that I wanted to share with you is around community, right? So it's something that's come up for me more recently with the COVID pandemic, having the privilege to be at home when things were, first starting off and lockdown was happening. I found myself walking around the neighborhood. And even though I had gone on walks before, it was very different because other people were also home, as we're navigating what was going on. And, slowly but surely, people that I saw around, I started waving to. And then if there was an opportunity, we started to talk. And I started to feel more connected. And, considering that by that time, my family had lived in the home for 31 years. This is the first time I was getting to know my neighbors, right? Um, it felt so powerful. It felt so compelling, even though, the conversations were very, surface level. It just felt like we've been occupying these spaces, but for the first time, we were sharing them. And so this really sort of helped me to start to explore community because with my particular family, we were disconnected from our extended family, right? All of my mom's sisters and their families are still in Vietnam. At the time, my father's sisters and mother, were in Vietnam, and so we didn't have sort of that built-in support network. And I think it really contributes to some of, the concerns or the issues um, that I may have. And so my hope is that as I continue to learn, as I continue to practice being in community with people, that I'll find a way home, and that we really are meant to be in community with one another. I know that some of the work around decolonized therapy and just decolonization of systems and frameworks is really about how do we not only do individual healing but collective healing, right? That I heal when I'm in community with you, and so that's something that I'm exploring and hoping to bring here to Heartful. And so, with that, I wanted to say thank you again for being here, for listening to my stories. And I look forward to connecting with you again. And until then, be well.